Well, I'll have to give you my impression of everything that has taken place for me today. And my impression is I am now a more firm believer in evolution than ever before. Because watching year by year, I see that there is an evolution. All the thoughts are better. The thoughts are clearer. Presentations are well-rounded. And above all, the right feelings are there. And as far as I can understand, evolution is a word that means things getting better. But when there is the possibility of evolution, there's also the possibility of devolution. And now it's come to be the time of the night where devolution sets in. Devolution.
Oh, okay.
Instead of things getting better, things get worse. See, because when I started giving talks a long time ago, I tried to give really inspired talks filled with all sorts of esoteric things that nobody ever heard before. And that got too hard for me. I couldn't do it. So then I thought I would try to present all new creative ideas. Like maybe I couldn't live up to all that spirituality, but at least I could be creative. But after a while, that proved to be too hard. And so I settled for trying to be deep. And I tried to have really pondersome types of thoughts. And then that got to be too hard. And finally I thought, well, maybe I can do useful talks. Things that people can practically apply. But that turned out to be too hard also. So I've just been in this, another word for devolution is you're in a tailspin. And that's sort of the way it's been with me, because I find out that everything's too hard. So finally I thought, well, I can give entertaining and humorous talks, and at least everybody will laugh and go home and feel they had a good time. But that hasn't worked out so well either. So now things have devolved to the place that they're at where everybody expected all along. Now I'm giving talks about what I don't know about.
That's going to be easy.
I guess in some ways I've always had this urge while giving talks to take off all my clothes. And I thought it was perverse. But the way it came out was you realize that in order to share with people, you can't hide anything. Because you can't say a truth that isn't you. It has to come through you. And so the desire to take the clothes off is the desire to cast away any kinds of illusions and so show yourself for what you are. And so I'm going to talk about something that I really am ignorant about tonight. I've studied it some, but I'm still ignorant. But the reason I'm doing that is not just to be an exhibitionist. The reason I'm doing it is because I think the information is important. It's very important. But going back to evolution instead of devolution, it's hard to tell what we've evolved. It's very hard to tell. Because in some ways, we're just living on constant cycles. Between 0 and 7, we live the Saturn period, and our body is everything. When a child has an OE, that's his whole life. His whole life is at stake there. Like a teenager, we're living the moon period, or we're living the period type of consciousness. If you pass judgment about the feelings, or the emotions, or the ideals that a teenager feels, you'll attack them, because that's where everything is. So part of what seems to be getting better really is we're just reliving the cosmic pattern itself. Another part where it seems like we're getting better, really isn't that either, because it's just a matter of looking at the archetype that we made before we came to birth. Like they find that the average age for genius to express itself is between 24 and 25. It happens to be the point of period for the 7 years of the Saturn period. And it's like saying when the mind was born, these thoughts were already in it before we came to birth. So a lot of things that we think are progress, not really that. It's something that we did before we came to birth. Then there's just plain maturity. Sometimes we mature, and then we do maturation, seems to be progress, but it's something that happens with the aging cycles. We can't really take credit for that either. I think the only thing that we can really say is evolution. That we can say is spiritual progress. Because I don't think I've ever heard anything. But only when we live in our thoughts, in our prayer, we can pray, we can say the most beautiful thoughts of our prayers, the most beautiful feelings of our blessing. We really see this and really get the only progress is when we are knowing that subconsciously in touch with the fact that we have made progress. And we do have progress. We have different attitudes. Like, for example, I had to read a bunch of boxes like these things. When I was a young man, I would try to get it as new as possible. And I'd stumble over something always got put me with always a disaster because I was impatient. I tried to do everything all at one time. Now that I'm a little older, I'm trying to control myself. I would try to do as many tricks as possible. I try to do tricks as reasonable. Like there's an understanding of what you can do, what you can't do. So there are changes of attitude as we get older. I guess when I found when I we don't want to give it. But if you can somewhere, one of us will come up with something. Is Saturn the ownership, not doing something that should be done. So we see that there are progress, errors. I say that this is
such as how about it
Like that. And then he ends up by saying, what a joy has you were there before, but now I was motivated to life. So we're looking at as an evolutionary idea. This is somebody that has really changed this is obviously a talk about astrology. And I want to talk about Einstein's attitude of astrology. By his own words, jealously and vainly, finds about predictions that guide your life. Diet. Astrology this was his first way of looking at it. Gradually, for general purposes, the further life with more so that his life makes lessons instead before the world. you've got to work both ends. Matter, it's so important that that kind of thought that every time that we need to get together as students, that there should be a discussion of anatomy, physiology, to prepare people for the events. So we want to see that's what we learn. We get older, that we do something quite good ourselves. And that's what we don't mind the fact. Hopefully you'll live long enough and solve yourselves so that you'll realize what other people do. But as we go on, you realize it's humiliating. But you realize that our physical conditions are restored. Physical side of things. This talk is not a how to. If I don't know what I'm talking about, we've all looked up our own problems in the books and come to them. But so I can't tell you this is the truth. I can't even tell you how to know the truth. But I can figure it out. I don't know. I don't want to become narrower and narrower. I want to get deeper and deeper. And also, so one of the things that I'm doing now is I'm looking at physiology and anatomy, and looking at them as much as I can. I can't say that I really know them. And so what I'm going to do is show you some of the speculations I have and hope that it catches and it hits. And I don't expect immediate feedback because I have feedback. But this is something that I like to know steady. So this is the last time I played. And it's not so much immediate thoughts. Yeah, whenever the immediate thoughts and intuitions are there, the world's true. But let it percolate. Let it hold it over in the back of our mind. There is something to this. There is something to that. And something like that is what I'm trying to suggest. So we're going to talk about this is going to be almost like a class. Only as a class teacher doesn't want to be great. And it's going to act like he does. It's sort of like if where one is supposed to be colored cats, like that. Somebody colored cats. We're getting all of this fake school science that doesn't really exist. What? Yes. Yes. I believe that. I was at Hallelujah morning. I acted like the other weekends, and I was afraid. I thought that's how you have to be. But eventually, I got to see one of those people actually did have to give it thought and didn't fake it. And I imitated him. Yeah, that's different. All right. So we're looking at physiology and anatomy. General anatomy is looking at structure of the body and physiology, function of the body, how it works. And with this, we're keeping in mind that the entirety of the physical body exists right now, especially because the way everything works, the kidneys are a net. The blood compression against the network of things that have two dimensions, where the big molecules slide off and they're contributing. And so if you look at that, that's exactly what it looks like. A net is a two-dimensional fluid karma. Normally, you think of karma in terms of a line. Karma is in fact linked together like a chain. You know, sort of look at the chains that you're carrying around. When you look at it, a net has several dimensions in different ways. And so the consciousness of all of the different ways that are in the celestial hierarchy that help us deal with our bodies, their consciousness is how we function. So in general, the signs of the Zodiac are more associated with anatomy. Now, mind you, I'm not I was possible the child with uncertain mode comes back. I was on the very certain mode. This is the most true. But when I say that, just because I'm coming on the tongue, it doesn't fall to what I'm very expecting. I think that I have in truth. Anatomy is like the science of the Zodiac. With a nice little analogy, it's like the sounding board of a physical instrument. The science of the Zodiac, there's something very static. Something that is not very static. Anatomy is very static. The planets, physiology, receive things in motion, in function, how they are used. And that much more, the active part, the useful part, is planets. Again, I agree with God on the same with another group. The only chance I have but the anatomy and physiology, then, the anatomy is more sign-oriented, physiology is more planet-oriented. Like, for example, you see things of predictions. If you look at the literature, title, like he said that the voice box was ruled by Mars. In another place, he says that the use of the voice was ruled by Mercury. Anatomically, the structure of the voice box is right. Physiologically, the use of it is forming the voice. So we're going to look at anatomy and physiology and just look at some facts about our bodies. One little aspect of our body that is always hard to get information. I'm one of those people that I have to have preambles. And I want to talk about some of the experiences that I have with regard to this too. This is going to be very quick. Even the little segment, the blood, you can spend a long time. It could be a whole course. We could spend a whole series of months on spiritual healing, of developing the right kind of attitude and how to apply it to their physical body. How do you know when is the right time to work with your healing energy to do it right? No, we all do this. Anytime we can give our lives service, if we could do what we better give our lives service, we are allowed physically to work. We get classes in it. I had a friend that used to live up on the other side. She it was really wonderful that we would be an issue the whole class of people. And we would look at a person and we would see their vision. They could see, like these plastic models of things, and the computer-aided image that would the doctor's office is better than an autopsy. Computer could see exactly what's going on inside the brain. Something like that. But it's even much better all this is for me. There's another condition that it's a problem of the narrative again and look at our subject itself. That is blood. Maxwell writes to quote Faust, it's not the devil making a bargain with Faust. He hasn't signed this book in blood. So blood is your essence. And spirituals all know blood is a direct expression of the spirit. The character and quality of the threefold spirit is directly manifested in blood. We all know about those two different types of intuition. There's the Neptunian intuition that you know something is true, and you know why it's true, but it comes through the nervous system. It's the Neptune system, but that one is subject to illusions. Then there is the Uranian type of evolution, where you just know that something is true, and you just act and do it. That's sort of like the direct action of the spirit of blood. All right. I want to talk about how to balance out Betty. Betty talked about the female's point of view, and I'm going to talk about something that is masculine, something different. I don't want to make it complete. The best example that I know of the expression of male direction is related to the nerves. It's something that happens directly in blood. I'm going to speak very personally now. That where the blood goes is where the spirit is. The spirit goes right in the blood. Like when you digest a big meal, your spiritual intelligence is in the stomach. Or if I tune a musical instrument, my ears get bright red, because that's where the blood is. And in sexuality, blood is in the genitals. And this is the perfect example because it shows two things. It shows how much of the spirit we are unconscious of. I could be very profane here, but I'll just mention a statement that the penis has a mind of its own. If you've ever tried to live in a pure, in a chaste, in a loving, not lustful way, it's really a chagrin how the blood in the penis has a character that's all its own. And that's exactly what it's like. We are not with our self-conscious part of the spirit. We're not aware of all of the rest of the spirit and the intentions that we have put upon it. The other thing I want to mention is that there is hope. It is possible by directing the consciousness in the spirit, but you have to be really strongly in the spirit, it's possible to void the penis of blood as a conscious act. And that's, so there is hope that our spiritual, that brings up some interesting questions. I've often wondered about things like what Max Heindel calls immaculate conception, where the creation of a new physical body is produced by people who unite with no lust whatsoever, and that they do it as a sacrament, as a prayer. And my thought is, wow, if all of the blood is in the head and heart praying, how do you ever keep it in the penis? You know what I mean? It's an interesting thing, because I think what actually has to happen is you have to learn how to divide your consciousness. And I think you have to literally burn the candle at both ends. But that's a side trip. There's all kinds of side trips that I'd like to go into that are fun. But I just can't take that. All right. Since the blood is a direct expression of the ego, the spiritual ego, the self, the true self, let's just look at it in terms of the threefold spirit, generally looking at blood. Because it's a wonderful philosophy, and there's the body is such a wonder, especially when you work with, like I work a lot with computers and electromechanical devices, and it's really nice to appreciate a body that actually heals itself. Like when a machine is broken, you've got to stop it. You've got to take the sucker down, and you've got to put in new parts. You can't do that with your body. You can't stop living. But it's such a wonderful thing that we actually do live and improve right within our body. All right, let's look at first one. The blood is one. No matter how you try to break it up, you can break it up into atoms if you like. You can break it up into molecules. You can break it up into leukocytes or thrombocytes or whatever you want. The blood is still one. You know what I'm saying? If the pressure is higher or if the pressure is lower, no matter what it's containing, it's fluidic and it is like the spirit. It's always one. The same blood might in one cycle go through the artery going up into the brain, or the next time it might go down into the legs or into the kidney or something like that. But, it's like looking, like if you took an eye drop of water and put it in some little creek up in Montana, and then it joined the Missouri, and then it joined the Mississippi, and then when you get down to the Mississippi and the bayous, where is your drop of water? It doesn't make any difference. Your drop of water is still contributing to what is that whole flow that is filling up those bayous. The blood is like that. Whether the volume of the blood is high or low, we can't think of separating the blood into parts. And that is like the Spirit. We cannot divide the unity of God into parts that we can take away from each other. All right, now we'll start getting a little bit technical. Looking at the blood in two, the blood goes in veins and in capillaries. In veins and in arteries. The blood comes out of the heart and it goes to the brain, or it goes to the stomach, or it goes to the pinkies, or whatever. And when it goes out, it's filled with oxygen and food. And it starts, all of the passages going from the heart start out singular, and then they branch, just like trees, and they branch again and again and again, until finally they branch into little networks, and those networks are called capillaries. And those capillaries just sort of drift between cells. And from those cells, the intelligence of those cells takes on the food and oxygen that it needs, and it takes and gives back the carbon dioxide and waste into the blood, which is discharged. Because at the other end of the capillaries, there is a tree structure going the other way that is called veins. The whole circulatory system is in general ruled by Aquarius. Aquarius is off at the periphery. The center of the wheel, the hub of the wheel, is Leo. So the heart, as the center of the circulatory system, is one part of it, and the circulatory system itself, the diffusive part, is ruled by Aquarius. This is broken up then into arterial circulation and venous circulation. The arterial circulation is ruled by Jupiter, and the venous circulation is ruled by Venus. Now there are exceptions to this. I know this is going to get awfully technical. We should have had this earlier in the day because it's a dry technical talk. And that is that the artery that goes from the heart to the lungs, it's called the pulmonary artery, has carbon dioxide. And the vein that comes back from the lungs to the heart has oxygen. So the way to tell the difference is arteries run away from the heart and veins run to the heart. The arterial solution with the circulation, with the exception of the pulmonary circulation, is filled with oxygen and nutriments. The venous circulation, with the exception of the vein going from the lungs back to the heart, is filled with waste, and it's filled with carbon dioxide. Now, this is really filled with oxygen. I'm sorry. Now, this is just a simplified view of it, and I read this stuff of physiology, and it just blows my mind. The intelligence of the spirit working in the blood. You see, when there is poison or there is waste that comes out of the cells, other than the carbon dioxide, suppose there is a red blood corpuscle that is carrying, some kind of uric acid. When it goes through the heart, what I'm trying to say is that the same blood might one time go through the brain and pick up some uric acid, and it comes back to the heart, and it goes to the lungs, and it goes back to the heart again. Now, it has to get rid of that uric acid. It has to get rid of it in the kidneys. So it goes out through a different artery, but maybe on this trip, it doesn't go through the kidneys. It might go through the liver instead, or it might go into the lower abdomen. And there is an intelligence right within the blood. I have not found anything in any physiology books that tells why a given blood corpuscle on one time through goes to the kidneys and why on another time through. It's sort of like an intelligence. Something in there says, hey, I got poison I got to get rid of. And the same thing with, like in some cases, the metabolizing of protein. Or the metabolizing of food that is taken in from the intestines. It goes to the liver, and the liver metabolizes it. But in some cases, that doesn't always happen. It's a mystery to me, and it's something that provokes great awe. I can see everybody's really tired. Maybe I should have taken it. So, we see then in the circulation a double-double. It's not just arterial and venous, but it's the arterial and venous with a special negation. And this is like counting in the most primitive form of counting. It's like doubling everything, counting 1, 2, 4, 8. Because that means there have to be 4 chambers of the heart. And so the blood comes into the chamber, it comes back through the body, and it comes into the right side of the heart. I have to be careful now. The atria are the return chambers. It comes into the right atria, and this is taking place in sequence, almost like the way valves in a car work. Like on every stroke, every piston isn't firing. So on every heartbeat, every chamber of the heart is doing its work, but it's not doing it on the same blood. Like there's a sequencing that takes place. It's a really beautiful thing. So the stale blood comes into the right atrium, and then timed correctly, it goes through a valve, and it goes into the right ventricle. And then the heart is a spiral muscle, and it puts everything it's got into like time and time without rest. It gives it everything it's got, all of our life. It's one of the most wonderful things in the world that our heart, when we couldn't use language any better when we say that somebody is a very hearty person or somebody is really heartfelt. The heart gives it everything it's got to pump it, and it pumps it out the right ventricle to the lungs. When it comes back to the lungs, it goes to the left atrium, and then on another cycle, it goes into the left ventricle. The left ventricle is the one where the big muscles are. The heart is basically in the center, but it's slightly on an angle, and the left side of it is bigger, and there's more musculature there, because that's the one that's going to pump it all the way through the body. And so we see with this double-double, it's sort of like one of those things that always comes up from the symbol of the opposition all the way through to the mysteries of mathematics, where you have the Moebius strip. The circulation forms like a figure 8. And in the middle of that figure 8 is the heart. And the one small loop is the one between the lungs, and the big one is much more complicated. All right, this is really, really complicated. All right, now I want to talk about the blood. We're counting 1, 2, 3, and then I'll just quickly dive into some other things, and we'll call it a night.
Can I ask you a question right now?
Yes.
Before we get off the heart, essay or sino atrial entry, the nose is what makes the heart beat.
Yes.
So what is the plan? What is the...
I don't know that. My study has not gone that far.
What is the side of Zodiac? What is the plan?
I don't know. Basically, the whole heart is ruled by the sun. I'm sorry.
Each person with Zodiac has a group organ, but God is perfect. That means that it doesn't mean that God is perfect. It means that the reactions from what you're thinking is perfect. It's going to come in line. It's going to be perfect. If you're thinking, if you just catching the cold means that you're not circulating your ideas properly. So that means that you're going to have a physical effect from catching the cold. So that's what he said God is perfect, because it's going to work itself out to be that kind of condition,
All right. On page 397 of the Cosmo, there is something in the last 3 paragraphs. It's not more than 7 or 8 sentences that is profound. People have written a series of books about them, and it relates the whole of the body to the 3 attributes of Trinity. The first attribute, which is associated with that being called the Father, is associated with the metabolic system, mostly with the skeleton, but also with the digestive system, the overpowering of food, and most of the big organs. That's the first. First is metabolic. The third member of Trinity rules, that is the Holy Spirit, that is the I Am consciousness, is associated with the nervous system. And the second attribute of Trinity is associated with the rhythmic system, which is what we're talking about. And all of the, if you want to study Trinity, rather than reading books on Trinity by medieval scholars who were logic choppers and saying how many angels there are on a pin, just looking at the perfect trinity in unity between these three systems is awe-inspiring. The rhythmic includes the blood and the lungs. They all interact. There is no blood without the skeletal system. The father produces the blood, like the red blood is produced in the marrow of the bones. But on the other hand, the blood, even with the direction of the spirit within it, still needs the nervous system to stimulate the heart. But both the metabolic and the nervous system can't be fed without the blood. And so just as we saw before, the second and the third members of Trinity are each associated with a different kind of intuition. The Uranian intuition hits straight in the etheric vital body, and it's associated with the blood. It's a direct hit. It works like the endocrine system. The endocrine system is a crystallization of the etheric body and the physical. The endocrine system is part of this rhythmic system in such a way that it's independent of nerves. It communicates directly back and forth through the blood. It's its own system. But yet, the blood has to have the nerves to know that there are sensations. We need to see what's going on. Like all the perception depends on the nervous system. And we can have all of this direct kind of intuition we want, but unless there is some factual information. But then again, the food that the rhythmic system takes to the nervous system and takes back to the metabolic system has to be overpowered by the metabolic system. Like it is, the three need each other. Each of these systems, the metabolic system, the nervous system, and the rhythmic system, need each other. The heart of the rhythmic system is the blood. All of the rhythms in the body are maintained by the lungs and heart. We can make some positive rhythms on our own by at what speed we chew our food and things like that, but most of the unconscious rhythms have to do with the heart and lungs. All right, so we know then that now we've looked at the blood in terms of 1, 2, and 3. There are lots of ways we can break this down. We can break down the blood into the red corpuscles and the leukocytes and the thrombocytes and things like that, but I'm afraid that would be much too technical. I'm starting to get into it, and I'm starting to enjoy it, but it's complicated. And I just want to bring these things up. And in order to do this, I want to talk about playing the point of view game. Did I ever bring that thing here where I talk about popcorn? Where each sign of the zodiac has its own reason why it likes popcorn. The Aries likes popcorn because it involves a flame and a dynamic change. Taurus likes popcorn because it's the starch. Gemini likes popcorn because it's fickle and it changes state all the time. Cancer likes popcorn because it's a nice, homey thing to do. Leo likes popcorn because it can make a big show of the whole deal. And Virgo likes popcorn because, it's every sign has its own point of view. It's a game that I think is really excellent to play to understand how the different points of view, the different signs of the zodiac work. You can say, well, how do they all like to eat popcorn? Like Aries would probably like to eat popcorn with pepper, and Taurus would probably like to eat popcorn with oatmeal and a side dish of rice, and Gemini would probably like to eat popcorn all kinds of different ways and not stick with one. Cancer would probably like marinated popcorn. Leo, of course, would love the buttered popcorn. Virgo would probably like yeast and mineral salts and all of those nutritional items. And Libra would probably like candied popcorn, and it would have to be sweet. And Scorpio would probably like vinegar on the popcorn. Sagittarius would probably like lard, and Capricorn would like it with minerals, and Aquarius would probably like it in some exotic way, made with a foreign copper or something like that. Pisces would probably like it with wine. Wine so popular. you get what I'm trying to say. It's a point of view game. You take it's a wonderful way to learn astrology by taking a subject and looking at all the different points of view. And that's what I've done with the blood. And I thought they were slipping off. All right. I'm taking the blood and looking at it with regard to each of the signs of the zodiac. And since we ended up with trinities, let's talk about each of the trinities. First we have Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. Heindel talks about this one directly, and he says that the Cancer rules the plasma part of the blood, the fluidic part. I actually even wonder whether it has something to do with the moon, or whether it has something to do with the sickle cells. When sickle cells develop, I don't know anything about that. The red blood corpuscles are ruled by Scorpio. I would also expect probably the uric, the wasting. Scorpio is the sign that wastes things. It gets rid of, eliminates wastes. And I would even suspect that the blood has a lot to do with the immune system. And I would even think that the antigens that throw things off would be ruled by Scorpio also. And the fibrin, which is developed in the liver, is which is ruled by Jupiter. The fibrin is ruled by Pisces. All right. Now that's one. There we're on firm ground because we have Heindel's clairvoyance we can work with. Now let's look at some other things. Let's look at the Aries signs: Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. Obviously, Gemini represents the opposites. You know, but all of these are knowledge signs. Gemini learns by contrast. This is not like this. And so, like the oxidation and carbonation and the hyperventilation and hypoventilation as a result of the content of the blood when it reaches the brain, the opposites, you know, like people who are over-oxygenated or under-oxygenated, that's a Gemini type of quality. See, Gemini rules exchanges, all right? Libra learns by comparisons. How is this like something else? And Libra always keeps balances, and there are many balances in the blood. There is the acid-alkaline balance, there's the sugar-insulin balance, there are temperature balances. Almost all of those balances are controlled by Libra. Aquarius is like the whole circulatory system itself. And Aquarius is obviously the etheric component, the gaseous part of the blood, the part that the hormones dissolve out of, like the captain of the hormonal system is the pituitary body, ruled by Uranus and Aquarius. You see what I'm trying to get at? I'm trying to get at by looking subject after subject, by looking at the blood, and then at the nervous system, and then at the skeleton, and at the various different organs. I'm trying to give information so that when we have to do astrodiagnosis, so that we can have some hope of trying to figure out what is physically wrong with the person, as well as what spiritual attitudes are there. And so I just took one little microcosm, the blood. We can do the same thing with the fiery signs: Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. Obviously, Aries likes to prove itself different. It likes to win in a competition or all of those things. And the differences in competitions that accomplish things are called, in physics, they're called temperature. So the temperature of the blood is ruled by Aries, whereas the basic heat and the basic volume of the blood, how much is there, is ruled by Leo. Now, I'm sure that some of you will go home and study and say, that guy's cracked, that can't possibly rule that. And I don't mind that. The next time we get together, I've got a whole year for you to forget. But the next time we get together, I'd like to hear what you've come up with these things. Obviously, I think that the generation of heat in the blood, which is driven by the opposite sign, is driven by Gemini and the thyroid, Mercury in the thyroid. The whole process of metabolism that generates the heat is a Sagittarian thing, which is why Sagittarius is, wherever it is strong in the chart, where it does like things like lard and butter and things like that. It likes those high metabolism kinds of substances. So metabolism, the metabolic quality of the blood. Now we get into really hard things. I've been sweating these out because here I've had to test all of my speculation to the ultimate, and I'm not sure of anything. But we do know that the temptation and the fall are symbolized by Scorpio, and that a consequence of the fall was coming into materialism, the solidification into materialism. That has its correspondence in the coagulation process. I think the massing of the blood and hardening it, trying to turn it into a stone, the coagulation is ruled by Taurus. We also know that the amount and kinds of minerals that are in the blood determine the nature and quality of intelligence that a person has. That how many minerals you have, or whether you're more sodium or whether you're more potassium, and how much more so, and the amount of minerals that you have to do with intelligence. And I think the correlation between the minerals carried by the bloodstream and the intelligence are ruled by. I'm just talking about the ability of the brain to function. I'm not talking about the power of the spirit working through the mind. All right. And in Capricorn, I think there is that very Capricorn rules all processes of crystallization. You know, Cancer and Capricorn each have a different process. Capricorn always tries to make things smaller and smaller, and Cancer always tries to smooth things over and they get bigger and bigger. So like Cancer, like in the shellfish, produces pearls. And the pearl keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, whereas when you compact things into smaller and smaller amounts, as the process of crystallization, like diamonds and such like that are a Capricorn idea. And we know from the teaching of Max Heindel that there is that unique, special, the ability of a person to compactify more spiritual consciousness into life is indicated by the individualization of the crystallization of the blood. And I think that this is crystallization. All right, you see what I'm working on. And I'm trying over the years, I'm not trying to learn everything that there is, but I just don't want to be basically in the dark. I'm trying to get information. I'm trying to get a feel of this. I'm trying to intuit what is true and what is not true. And I would very much appreciate over the years if there are feedback from other people with their speculations and with their experiences about blood and the zodiac. That's all I have to offer.
Let's ask one more question.
Sure.
Okay. If you take, like the first trimester of gestation versus the last trimester, where you have just the brain and the spine forming in the first, and then you have the active hormone of androgen forming in the latter, is that not the influence in the same manner?
Yes, it's something I know very, very little about. But in the embryo, there are 3 layers. The outer layer, the mesolayer, and each one of those relates to one of those systems. The middle layer, there are exceptions though. The middle layer is where the lungs come out of, but also the intestines come out. So that's basically the Virgo common sign pole. The outer layer has to do with everything from the skin to the bones and things like that, and the inner layer has more to do with the nerves and such like that. But that's also a good part of the study spiritually of embryology is also a good thing for understanding even further the study of Trinity. There are books that I've heard about on the study of esoteric embryology. Heindel gives a few hints. He says that when the sperm meets the egg and produces the first cell, that first cell is a heart cell. And I assume that that's the heart cell where the seed atom is in. And the second cell that is differentiated is the pineal gland. And I think that has something to do with the etheric control through the endocrines of the whole intrauterine activity through the endocrines coming out of the pineal gland. And so the etheric body can build the physical into the etheric matrix. But it's a very complicated thing about which I'm being bold enough talking about something I don't know about. I don't want to stretch myself too far. Okay, but if you have another question or statement.
I would like to elaborate on that. You said the second was pineal gland, okay? Now, when we are entering life, we're protoplasm, okay? And spiritual energy moves through the pineal gland. So the type of energy that we are supposed to come, or the type of body we're supposed to come from, really manifests through protoplasm energy, just take form. Your mother may have a person, or should I say, birth defects is also karmatic also. So if you are controlling the destiny of your mother, she may have some difficulty in balancing the acids out or something. You may come back with or your mother may be a drug addict at the time and cause you to come back because you may have some kind of...
Yes. Yeah, I think that would be the kind of circumstance where the incoming infant actually maybe led the mother into drugs in the past life and has to get into that in this life. But to the degree that the individual that's coming to birth is self-conscious, to that degree can it control the whole developmental process. Like Heindel mentions that John the Baptist began taking over the process very early, at 2 weeks or something like that. And the self-consciousness relates to Neptune and the pineal gland and the spirituality of the third member of the threefold self. All right, this would get on too long. Let's close with the Rosicrucian prayer. O God, increase our love for thee, so that we may serve thee better from day to day. Let the prayers of our us and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in thy sight. O Lord, our strength, our peace.